Hello and welcome to Georgia Power Show. We talk about movers and shakers, influencers, those who impact and influence our culture and our society. Joining me today is one of those folks. Her name is Vikki Morrow, the president and chairperson, the mover and shaker of the National Black Arts Festival. Ms. Morrow, welcome to Georgia Power.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here with you.
Atlanta is known as a citadel of civil rights, but also for the arts, if you will. A lot of artists have resided here, work out of here. You just finished your 30th anniversary of the National Black Arts Festival.
Absolutely.
Where are we now? What is the state of black art in Atlanta and across the country through your organization?
So the National Black Arts Festival has been an organization that's been in Atlanta for 30 years, as we discussed. And what national has meant is that national artists come to Atlanta and are celebrated in Atlanta. So we're continuing with that tradition. It started with an outdoor festival 30 years ago, and now we have evolved as to what that means, how the organization presents artists, meaning that we have programs in schools for our emerging artists, and we're still working to present established artists as well.
September is a grand month for you. If you told me earlier, really it continues your gala, if you will, the gala
Right.
that you recently had.
Yes, we let the gala kick it off. And the gala is actually an annual fundraiser that we have. And at the gala, we actually recognized a visual artist that is not originally from here, but actually went to school in Atlanta, Radcliffe Bailey. He's one of our most favorite sons in the visual arts community.
Quite an accomplished artist.
Absolutely. And so Radcliffe was recognized. We also recognized one of our main corporate sponsors and one of our former board chairs, Ingrid Saunders-Jones. And so that kicked off the season, and we take that money, and in the past it was an outdoor festival as well as celebrating multiple arts. It also had a section at Greenbrier. We've moved it around a little bit. There were things highlighted also at the Alliance Theater and other venues, indoor venues as well. But this year, what we're doing is making sure that there's more of a focus on visual arts. And so at the Westside Cultural Arts Center will be our first event in September 15th and 16th. And we are highlighting 11 visual artists there. And it's an opportunity for collectors to come in and possibly purchase art, and also for the public to come in and witness and see the artists as well as their artworks. So we're excited about that as our first event in September.
Now the gala, I'm told, celebrated who's who of Atlanta, those in the arts, and appreciate the arts. But I remember, I've been in Atlanta since the National Black Arts Festival started, that used to have a festival in the park.
Correct.
Now, that's no longer there, or this has been extended to other avenues?
So that event is no longer there. And the major reason is that funding has shifted. As we all know, that after the recession, that funding for most nonprofits shifted. And National Black Arts Festival is no exception. And so we've had to figure out how to continue to present artists for less money. And so we've moved away from the huge outdoor festival, not to say we won't ever do that again, but that is why we've moved to the indoor event, is what we're highlighting this year for visual artists. But in the past years, we've highlighted other disciplines, sometimes dance, sometimes music, sometimes film or theater.
Has there been a lack of interest, or somehow the enthusiasm for the arts has waned? What is the state of the National Black Arts Festival now and black art itself?
So let me speak specifically about what I perceive that's happening for visual artists. And our visual artists are phenomenal here in the city of Atlanta as well as the rest of the country. But I do believe that National Black Arts Festival in the last 5 years did step away from focusing on visual art. And I wanted to make sure that like you, I've been in Atlanta almost 30 years, and I wanted to make sure that the National Black Arts Festival still really represented that discipline. And so,
in fact, its roots, right?
Yeah, as far as I'm concerned, our roots. So we did showcase other disciplines, always have, always will. But people think of National Black Arts Festival, they tell you about a piece of art they bought, their first piece of art. And so we want to go back to those roots, especially in this 30th anniversary year. But I do think that as consumers, Atlanta is a home of so many very affluent and influential African Americans. I would love to see that more of us engage in actually collecting art and supporting our artists so that they continue to have the financial support and they're not forced to go to New York, Miami, Charlotte, other cities to make a living.
There are, as you said, a range of visual artists here. In fact, our producer and cameraman, Okeeba Jubalo, is an accomplished artist in his own right. But why do you suspect people aren't collecting as much? I know my wife is a collector of Shogo art from Nigeria, but I don't go to many other folks' homes of my age or younger particularly, and see an art collection.
Yeah, somehow we missed a generation, frankly. So my generation and your generation, yes. We understood the importance and we were really interested. It may have just actually happened in the 90s when the Cosby Show and some of those shows made us more aware of visual artists. But now we somehow didn't pass that tradition down to the next generation. Our children don't seem to collect. And I remember having a conversation with Onaji Henderson, actually from Zucot, and he said they want to do everything they can to educate people about the importance of collecting art, especially our community, and for us to understand that this is really a financial decision and how it's an investment, just like you invest in anything else. And so I do think that we need to talk about it more. We need to educate the younger generation, and I'd like for NBAF to be a part of that education.
So it's not just about pretty pictures. There's money in this.
Yes, absolutely. It's
money for the collector.
Absolutely.
And money for the artist, which seems to be a problem right now. Money for the artist, is that correct?
Absolutely. People often look at art and say, you know, I can afford something that's $500, but then they won't invest in that like they invest in shoes or cars, and those are depreciating assets. Right. Art is generally an appreciating asset, and so we want to make sure that we are contributing and supporting artists. And it also is a financial win for that consumer and that collector as well.
What are artists telling you? What are the Okeebas and others, the Onaji Hendersons, what are they telling you about their craft, the state of their business right now?
I think they are a little frustrated, understandably so, and disappointed that in a city like Atlanta, with so much money and influence, that they aren't able to make a living exclusively doing art. But in other cities, their artists seem to be able to thrive. And we don't want them to just struggle to survive. We don't want to continue to perpetuate this starving artist phenomenon. We want to support. And I think that it is really educating seasoned folks like myself, as well as the younger generation, about the importance of supporting all arts discipline. I know one of the things that Okeeba has shared with me is it's one of the few arts disciplines where they have to show up and then hope somebody comes to buy their work. If you pay a dancer, you pay a musician, you pay a filmmaker, you pay all of those other artists of other disciplines in advance. And then their art is produced.
Kind of backwards.
It's a little backwards. We're expecting visual artists to go out and create the art and then set up at a gallery or set up at a festival and then hope that somebody passes by and pays. We need to think about how to do that differently, changing the financial models, especially for visual artists.
Ms. Morrow, isn't it a bit puzzling? This is our home, Atlanta, the Black Mecca.
Yes.
But other artists, you just said, can thrive in the Charlottes and the Chicagos and New Yorks, of course.
Yes.
What's different about here?
I think there are two pieces to this. One is that I want to absolutely commend the Fulton County Arts Council that has for a long time supported arts. The city of Atlanta now has doubled their investment to $2 million, but it's still not as much as most other major cities. And then, so that's the government support that's needed and the foundation support that's needed, but also we need individuals to support, as we just discussed.
Before we go to break, I just want to recognize you talk about Atlanta. Michael Lomax,
Yes.
who's now the chairman of the National Black College Fund, is that correct?
Yes, United Negro College Fund.
College Fund, excuse me.
UNC.
He's the one that founded the National Black Arts Festival, was it not?
Yes, he was a visionary and helped to start the National Black Arts Festival as well as Hammond's House Museum. And so we love the fact that we had a visionary at that time, and we want future leaders to continue to vision as to how the arts can help support the economic vitality of our city, Atlanta.
And his wife at the time was a dynamic writer named Pearl Cleage.
Absolutely. I don't know if people remember that they're connected, and Pearl is still doing her thing, and we love Pearl, and she's been a huge supporter of the National Black Arts Festival.
We're talking to Ms. Vikki Morrow, the president of the National Black Arts Festival. I'm Maynard Eaton. This is Georgia Power. We'll be right back. Hello again and welcome back to Georgia Power. Our guest is Vikki Morrow, the president of the National Black Arts Festival. Ms. Morrow, you look like a piece of art. What got you involved in the National Black Arts Festival as the president, and how challenging is that position?
So first, let's start that I've been in Atlanta almost 30 years, and it was one of the most fun things that happened for me during the summer months was to attend the National Black Arts Festival events. And so that's how I became exposed. As others have said, I bought a few pieces of art there and just really thrived and it felt like a real cultural celebration. And so I've missed that the festival has shifted some.
And it was a holistic sort of thing. The park was full of art enthusiasts. It was a vibe there, was it not?
Absolute vibe, and things were happening all over the city, frankly, not just in the park, but it seems that the park is what people remember most.
Yeah.
So that warm feeling, I've been in the nonprofit sector for a decade now, mostly working with girls serving agencies, but because of my fondness for National Black Arts Festival, I was on the board. I joined the board of NBAF and had an opportunity a little over a year ago to step in the position of president and CEO. So that's how I've gotten here. But you asked me something about...
what is it about this job that kind of turns you on?
You asked me about...
Are you an artist, for example?
I am not an artist, and I would not embarrass myself or others and say that I was a collector either. But I just love the arts, and I love the whole cultural celebration and celebrating our own. That's what I love about the organization. But it is a challenging job. Absolutely. And I think the combination of fundraising, also the combination of supporting multiple disciplines. And we have to continue to support multiple disciplines, even though we're most known for supporting visual artists, I believe, or showcasing visual artists, because what's unique about NBAF is that it's the oldest multidisciplinary arts organization in the country that's focused on the arts and contributions of artists of African descent. So we want to keep that. To focus on multiple disciplines. There are a lot of film festivals and music festivals, but there aren't many festivals or organizations that support multiple disciplines. So it's a rewarding feel, but I think we've had a fair amount of transition in leadership just because it's a really tough job.
And part of your challenge, I would imagine now, is reimagining, reinvigorating,
Absolutely.
reigniting that special feeling the National Black Arts Festival once had. Is that tough? Is that the challenge that lies ahead of you?
I think that's the biggest challenge. I think you hit it. One is that this was an organization that has such a legacy. People thought about the National Black Arts Festival and that outdoor event and just, rave about it for different reasons. The artists like getting together with other artists. Some people like shopping for art. Some people like the music event. Some people like the opening parade. And so when you've had an organization that has had such an impression and such an impact on so many people, it's hard to live up to that, especially with shrinking budgets. And so that's the challenge, and we have to figure out, as you mentioned, reimagining what's next. How can we, within a more constrained budget, how can we continue to live up to our mission, which is supporting multiple disciplines and advancing the arts and artists of African descent, and still please the audiences? And more importantly, how do we take this brand and this platform and leverage it for the next generation of artists? That is what's really important in making sure that we do that.
And really challenging for you too, isn't it?
And very challenging, because young people go and they've created their own thing. But I think that the special sauce, what's special about NBAF is this brand and this legacy. And yes, they can go off and start new things, but I think the ability to use this brand to help them is pretty amazing, because if an artist is recognized or showcased by NBAF, it really does set them apart, and so we want to be able to use that.
Ms. Morrow, I think the National Black Arts Festival has reignited or ignited a film industry here. On the way here, I saw 2 movie sets just on the way to this interview. Now Atlanta is known as a major movie capital.
Yes.
The Black Arts Festival had something to do with that, did it not?
I don't think we could take credit for that. Okay. But I think mostly everything runs around economics, right? And I do believe it's the tax credits that brought that booming film industry, but you're absolutely right. And now what we have to figure out, we've got this multi-billion-dollar industry here in Georgia and really centered around Atlanta. How do we make sure that the next generation of artists can partake in that economic prosperity? How do we make sure that a visual artist can do something with the set, design the set? How do we make sure that someone that has been previously involved in theater can obviously act or perform in a film? So how do we take the musicians and the dancers and the folks that we have always showcased at NBAF and propel them to participate in the film industry?
And there are many students eager and hungry for this. I teach at Clark Atlanta University, teach journalism, but we have a film and a part of that discipline as well. Spike Lee came out of Morehouse and Clark Atlanta University from Atlanta. So there are those who are hungering, desiring to be in this industry, who speak of and think of Spike Lee as being a pioneer in this industry from Atlanta.
Yes, and so we need to figure out who's the next Spike Lee, the next Susan Lees or whoever. Right. Just make sure that we continue to do that. Our Next Gen Artist program is a wonderful example of beginning to expose students in 2 of our local high schools to the film and media industry. So we have a wonderful program director that is working hard every day at Washington and Mays High to make sure that those students have an opportunity and realize that this is a possible career field. People can't be what they have never seen. And so continuing to expose young people is another part of what we want to do with our youth programs at NBAF.
Speaking of exposure, speaking of programs, you have a list of other things coming up in September that you might want to talk about. Can you tell us a bit about your September lineup?
Yes. First, I do want to mention that not only do we have our Next Gen Artist program, which is a wonderful youth program, before that we started a program called Move Dance. And Move Dance is exposing some of our middle school students to the art of dance. And so those are the things that NBAF is focused on for our next generation of artists. And yes, I want to take this opportunity, as you mentioned, to talk about our September events. Before break, we talked a little bit about our September 15th and 16th events at Westside Cultural Arts Center that are showcasing visual artists, and we hope people will come out and see, and we hope people will come out and purchase. Then that's a look forward as looking at some phenomenal artists that are emerging. Who's the next Ratcliffe Bailey? Who's the next Fahamo Peku? Who are those artists? And then we have an event that's looking back. So there is a gallery, Chastain Park Gallery is what I meant to say. We will have an exhibit of 30 years, sort of looking at the timeline of NBAF and some of the wonderful moments that we had over the 30-year experience. That is being curated by Pelham McDaniels from Emory University and Candy Tate.
Highlighting the past, highlighting NBAF's history.
And the last event, because people are so accustomed to us having an outdoor event, is on the Beltline. It's called Second Line on the Beltline, and we're taking a little part of the New Orleans tradition and having a processional parade that starts at Kipps Drive Academy on September 29th at 3:30, and we are going to have a processional parade and celebration from Kipps Drive to Gordon White Park, and then we'll end that celebration with a musical feast with Orchestra Noir as we continue to expose NBAF's followers to an all-black orchestra. We won't have all the pieces, but it'll be a phenomenal performance. This group was founded in 2016, and we want to continue to expose others to the wonderful artists that we have in our community.
Ms. Morrow, you sure articulate the thrill of black arts, and it's multidiscipline. Are others picking up on your excitement, your enthusiasm for where the National Black Arts Festival is in its 31st year?
I think so. I think that NBAF, anytime you have an organization that is this old, there have been some starts and some stops, and so there's the bumpy history. I think that in my first year, I've just finished my first year, it was a lot of explaining, improving myself, and talking to folks, and I do think that people are beginning to get excited and to feel like, NBAF, we're sort of putting that first 30 years behind us and building on that and reimagining what the next 30 can look like. We are continuing to do some things that we've always done in order to save money by collaborating. One of the events we're having during September is a collaboration with the High Museum for Jazz at the High in celebration of NBAF. We're also celebrating with one of our long-term partners, True Colors, for their Kenny Leon. NBAF, True Colors' first play was done 15 years ago as a part of the NBAF season. So we were a part of the launch of True Colors with Kenny. And so we are collaborating again for their play on Nina Simone, and inviting our supporters to participate in that, actually come free of charge for their final rehearsal on September 23rd. So a big part of this whole season is that everything is free. Wow. And so that's the reason people often ask me, is NBAF just for the affluent? And no, NBAF has those high-end events so that we can have a free season and the public that's open to the public, and so that we can create scholarships and financial opportunities to support young and emerging artists.
But you say free this season.
Yes.
But I think there's a misconception that arts aren't free, that we do have to pay for the artists themselves.
Absolutely.
And to support the art, right?
Absolutely. So they come into the event for free, but when they come to the artist shows or the gallery exhibits, there is an expectation that they will support financially. NBAF underwrites the cost so that the artists have a gallery to showcase, but then we would hope that the public would join us in supporting those artists by paying for the art pieces and the artwork.
Vikki Morrow, is your message taking hold? You don't look concerned, you look excited, but do you feel that the excitement spreading throughout Atlanta?
I think we've got to stay hopeful and optimistic. I think that NBAF is something that everyone that I talk to says, we can't let this treasure go. We've got to keep it. We've got to figure it out. And so I am inviting others to help, to join in as the board enters into strategic planning the last quarter of this year. So I'm feeling very hopeful and optimistic and excited that people will help us reinvent and reimagine NBAF.
She said it to you. Ms. Vikki Morrow, the president of the National Black Arts Festival, a new day for the National Black Arts Festival as it enters its second 30-year exploration of the arts. I'm Maynard Eaton. This is Georgia Power.